I'm Jennifer Ashley Tepper.
And I'm Joe Iconis, and this is Album Podcast.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about Flesh and Bone, the Robots song, and we'll go into how this song came to be, how iPads were involved, and just what kind of robot Joe Iconis imagines to be in this song.
I have a very specific idea of who the robot is.
So if you like songs about technology and how that, unexpectedly comes to life, you'll love this episode and this song.
Yeah. Enjoy. Press play. Robot.
Oh, I wish I was flesh and bone and not made of stone and able to actually feel. I wish I was flesh and bone and not on my own and happy and human and real.
Let's talk about Flesh and Bone, the robot song.
Let's talk about it.
So how this song came about in a pretty unique way compared to a lot of your other songs. What was the inspiration for this song?
It did. So the song came about because of a prompt, I guess. It was written for a show that my great friend and collaborator Ashley Rodbrough was directing and producing at Ars Nova. It was sort of like a one-off theater piece that Ars Nova was doing, and it was all like short plays and performance pieces that were built around Apple products. Which, I mean, when I describe it, it sounds like it was like a commercial for Apple, but it really wasn't. It was just sort of like this idea of like using technology to create theater. And so this was in like 2012, maybe. And she asked me to write a song for it, and the idea is that the song would be performed by iPads, I guess. We would like use only iPads to perform the song. And so
this was before this kind of thing was like hot. This was early iPad theater.
Truly early iPad theater. Like it really felt like it was like a cutting edge kind of situation. Yeah. As I describe it now in 2023, it feels a little basic, but it really wasn't back then. It felt very novel and very strange. And so I wrote this tune, and I wanted to I wanted to write something that wasn't just going to be performed using the technology, but something that was sort of like about technology itself, or use technology as a metaphor. And so I wrote this song about a robot, and I really liked the idea of the robot's battery dying over the course of the song, which felt like a really nice way to connect it to actual devices, especially back in 2012 when the battery life wasn't what it is now.
Here's a question I haven't gotten to ask you on any other song. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who are your favorite robots? Like, was this inspired by the idea of like being asked to write about something technological and kind of taking a left turn and writing about technology of the past? Because like robots doesn't feel like the easy way to go as far as like, hey, we're gonna do your song with iPads. It's like almost vintage technology. Who are your favorite robots?
Yeah, it is. And I guess like I liked the reason that a robot made so much sense to me was, I think, because it sort of feels like an old idea of what the future is, like the idea of like a robot, servant is such a like mid-century idea of like, this is what the future will be. We'll never have to make our beds again because our house robot will make them. And so it's like, I loved the idea that it was like a robot is like technology that's kind of already outdated or from another time. And like, I love the idea of like, even in the realm of like gadgets and things, a robot would feel kind of like, like an outsider. I love the idea of like a robot and an iPad. And the robot feeling like, oh, I'm not as good as that thing. So many people like connect this song to WALL-E, It feels like it's like a very like in the universe of Wally song. And I guess that, Wally crossed my mind, but I definitely was not thinking of Wally when I wrote the song. And honestly, even now when I think about the robot who is singing Flesh and Bone, I realize I'm thinking about Conky, which is the robot from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Hmm.
So like a real classic chunky robot. Like I really respond to robots that basically look like they're a person in a robot suit. Because many of the ones that I love, like Conky, just were that, It's like and so it's like they're just sort of big and clunky, and if they were in your house, they would just be knocking things over. And I also I really love the movie AI. Um, uh, which I guess is like it's like controversial two letters to say now in 2023. But the movie AI is a movie that Stanley Kubrick was developing for years, and then he died before he could make it, and so Steven Spielberg took it over, and it came out in 2001, and it's basically about this really advanced robot that is invented that can feel human emotions. That's like the hook of this robot, and it's kind of like this robot's journey, played by a just post Sixth Sense Haley Joel Osment in a very great performance. And that idea of like a piece of machinery actually having human attributes and actually being able to feel, I feel like that was the thing that probably influenced the song most.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And can you talk about like the colors of this song as far as like instrumentation, orchestration, musically, like how you feel like that kind of touches on like the whole robot of it all?
Yeah, for sure. So like, the production of Flesh and Bone as it appears on the album is actually it's a little different. We arrived at it a little differently than some of the other tunes because so the aforementioned Ashley Rodbro, who created the show at Ars Nova that Flesh and Bone was written for, she ended up making a short film based around Flesh and Bone, and this track was essentially the track that we made for that short film. And so Ashley had a ton of input into the sound of it. And I think that she was really excited about bringing out the kind of like contemporary flavor of the song, and making the song feel um, something that was like kind of related to pop music currently. Pop music currently does feel so electronic, it feels so computer driven, that I think that like the kind of like bleeps and bloops in the song and the processedness of the song, it kind of jives with the message of technology. And so like Flesh and Bone, even when it's performed live, there's always the element of like computerized sound. But it doesn't feel like, it's not, as far as like songs and orchestrations of mine, it's not as like computer centric as something like Be More Chill. It's like it's still, there's like a humanness to it, even with the sort of technological, obviously synthy sounds on the track.
And as far as like the performance history of this song, obviously it's Jason Sweet Tooth Williams, who we've talked
Hmm.
about a lot in previous podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Who else has performed the song, and like, when did Jason start performing it?
Jason started performing it. He started performing it pretty early on, like in 2012 or 13, probably. Um, which was the first time that we ever did it in concert. When I wrote it for the show at Ars Nova, I performed it myself with an iPad. Um, and then other, like other people have, I mean, Jason's performance of it is amazing. And he is like, he is such a human performer, which sounds like a silly thing to say, but there's just like like the thing that I always say about him is that he seems like a real person, who just happens to be like, singing or acting or whatever, but he's never not like a real man. Whereas there are plenty of musical theater performers who are, fairly robotic in their in their actions or vocal affectations. Jason Williams is so not that, and so I love that he's like the voice of this thing that's a machine, and I think he just like captures that so perfectly. But Will Rowland also has sung the song quite a bit, and it's a different take on the song. I think that his robot is perhaps a little more cerebral than Jason Williams's robot. But yeah, I feel like those are the only two gents who have ever sung the song.
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
think,
say I
right?
thought so too. It hasn't been performed in any kind of like educational context, like students. It is released sheet music wise, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so like I've definitely heard, other people who I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
intimately familiar with sing the tune, and but yeah, I feel like at concert it's only Jason and Will, and it's also one that I tend to do myself quite a bit. The end with like the nanas is a really nice like audience sing along moment because the lyric is really easy because it's just nana. So I often defer to Flesh and Bone.
Yeah, it makes sense. Anything else about Flesh and Bone?
It's just the title of it. It's often appeared in multiple versions, but um, I wait. Now I'm doubting myself. Is the title of it on the album the Robot song or the Robots song?
I was gonna ask this as well. So I've seen it both
Yeah.
ways. On the album, I think it's the possessive.
Yeah, yeah. That was always my intention, because I have so many songs that are like, the whatever song. It sometimes is listed as the robot song, but I always think of it as the possessive, as it's the song belongs to the robot as opposed to being about the robot. And so that's what the official title is, and that's how it is on album, and will be forevermore.
Also, if you can't really tell, like if you're introducing the song and mess up, like we're not really gonna know because the next letter's an S. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's more about the literature, but
yeah,
I want it for history,
of
for future
course.
generations when they're reading about it to know
Of
that
course.
it's
Some
not.
future Jen Tepper is really gonna wonder about this, so we want her to have all the information.
Now future Jen Tepper. The
Yeah.
song is not about a robot, the song is for a robot.
Yeah. The
Big
robot
difference.
possesses the song. Great.
That's right.
The robot's song.
I'm feeling like I'm flesh and bone and not made of stone and able to actually feel. I'm feeling
Hey,
like
thanks so much for listening or watching to my podcast. Do me a favor and go to wherever you just listen to or watch this thing and subscribe or like or give us a great rating or review, and then head to bpn.fm/album to find out even more information about this podcast, more ways to watch, more ways to listen, and check out my album. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Album Podcast is executive produced by Liz Armstrong, produced by Dori Berenstein, Alan Seals, Kim Garris, and the rest of the team at the Broadway Podcast Network. Be sure to visit bpn.fm/album for both audio and video versions of this podcast and to listen to Album.
na 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 na